working twice as hard to get
Yeah.
deals sold and making only 2/3 of that compared to before.
Yeah.
And you know what people don't want to hear is working hard, right? They don't want to hear it because that means, more work for them, more, time out of their day. But that's what this takes to get into it. That's what it takes to survive in this market. What's the drive going through your mind, Earon, when you start hearing it's harder, it's going to take longer? What's the perpetual drive that's making you go forward and do this?
For myself,
you, your team, Q, anybody.
Yeah. I think the ones that are successful right now, they have a standard of success, Al. That's what it is. They have a standard for success. And that means that whatever it takes to get it done, they're going to do it and get it done. They're not going to make excuses. You know what I mean? So let's talk about this. Right now, because of the softening in the market, because of what is inherently happening, some people keep, by the way, let me just say this. This is my ADHD. Some people, dude, this is annoying me so much. Some people are like, we're not in a recession. Like everything is fine. Everything is normal. And it's like, what? Do you not see what's happening right in front of us? Like literally the market, at the very least, it's a strong correction. But dude, I see inflation in cost of living increasing. I see the Feds having to increase interest rates to force a softening in the market, and the price correcting faster than it ever has. We see rents for the first time in like 50 years have to drop because it cannot, like literally humans can no longer afford to rent. You know what I'm saying? So people in certain urban areas are having to literally, I'm using the word literally a lot because I'm just trying to emphasize it so much. But in urban markets, people are having to rent pool where it's a 2-bedroom apartment and like 3 people will split the rent. One person will stay in the living room. So we are undeniably in unprecedented economic times. Undeniably, anybody who tells you we're not is trying to sell you something, and most likely it's because they're trying to sell you on something that they were doing 9 months ago that isn't working anymore. So my point is the drive for individuals that are successful now, the way they were 6 and 9 months ago, is that the standard is we will do whatever it takes to be successful. Now, right now, because of the market changes, it's requiring us to work twice as hard to sell the deals for 2/3 of the profits. Now, what that means is 9 months ago, if you got a relatively good deal, you would go like this, and it was gone. You know what I'm saying? If you had any sort of initiative on the marketing of your deals on the disposition side, that joint was gone, fam. Right? Now it's not like that. Now their inventory is increasing, meaning price is having to drop, meaning we need to compete. We need to put our deals in front of our buyers consistently, the same way. Like, go figure, Al, we actually have to market to our clients now. We actually have to market to our customers. Actually, these are customers. Who are our customers? The buyers of our contracts. We have to market to them very aggressively now. We actually have to be a business who one of the major components is marketing to buyers. But I think the reason why a lot of wholesalers are getting discouraged by this is because they've only known this massively and unrealistically hot market of, inflated prices are vanishing off the shelves with the quickness, and you don't have to sell because people are begging you for your inventory. And we wholesalers, we used to be the hot girl in the club, where there was only 2 hot girls in the club and there was 100 dudes, and all the dudes wanted us. And so we had the pick of the litter, in terms of all of the buyers were coming to us, and we're like, no, your breath is bad, and no, I don't like your shoes. That used to be us as wholesalers. Now it's like, nah, there's 100 other girls in the club. So now we gotta be a pick me. I gotta be a pick me. I gotta be like, no, like here's why. Here's why you gotta talk to me. I'm gonna go out of my way to market myself if I want to get chose tonight. That's the way it works. And I think a lot of wholesalers and investors are getting discouraged because they're like, oh, it's not working. Like, no, it's working, but you actually have to do the stuff that it takes for an average business to work, which is you got to market aggressively. These are the tough times that make strong people. So I know I probably answered that in the most scenic way, but I think that the high standards is the driver, and that's what I mean when I say we're having to work harder in terms of the marketing of our deals to get them sold, dude.
Dave Richter was on the show talking about habits in finances, right? And how you need to implement these strategies where you can save more money and keep more money by implementing other strategies, getting other bank accounts, dumping money in. But on the personal side, on our in our daily lives, habits, creating those habits so that it becomes natural. Talk to us about some of these habits that maybe you've seen with the real estate professionals, or maybe there's basic habits out there that people tend to get away from, and then you bring them back into focus about these are the things that you really got to hammer home with habits.
So one thing with real estate professionals is that 24-hour mentality that got like guns to the wall all the time. And I understand the hustle, believe me, I get it. But rest is a requirement, not a reward. So picking up bad habits of constantly working and being famished and unfocused and just not fueling yourselves correctly lead to burnout. And so I see that a lot in real estate because you feel like you're in debt to your client. You're feeling like if you are not at their beck and call, that something is, it's just like, I'm a big person on boundaries. With productivity comes boundary. And so when you have boundaries, you have boundaries with self. And with the burnout rate happening so quickly and depression and anxiety and off, rip, it just causes such a ripple effect. So when you build healthy habits, every day I'm going to wake up, my schedule is 5 a.m. I wake up, shower, take, pray. By 6:30, the boys to bed. I'm getting them breakfast. I don't even touch my phone. I don't even look at my emails because it is so intentional that I make sure that in the morning I'm pouring myself into my boys so that when they go to school, they're not stressed out. They feel loved. They feel well nourished. They feel balanced so that they can have a good day. We have to understand the energy we bring to other people when the first thing you do when you wake up, you don't even know if you can walk yet, and you're checking your Instagram to see like who's DMing you. And it's like, listen, it's 5 in the morning. I promise you're not missing out on anything. And it's just, as even real estate, anything, we go crazy on wanting to, do the most for people. But what we fail to realize is that with our policies and procedures from the beginning, when you initially introduce yourself, set those boundaries from the beginning, because then you avoid people overstepping boundaries. People overstep because you let them. And so the way on our personal life that you can contribute better habits and routines is, let's say for example you want to go to the gym, you want to lose weight, you want to get your body right for summer, um but you find it really hard to get out of bed and you find it really hard to just get out the door. So what you're going to do is you're going to set your bag up the night before, you're going to set all your gym stuff up the night before, you're going to take it back to fifth grade when you were excited the day before, set everything up, get your protein shake ready, your protein bar, your work clothes are set up so when you come home, you're good, you shower. And the hardest part is just getting out of bed now. The keys are by the front door. The protein shake is on the counter. There's literally no, oh, I don't have clean gym clothes. Yes, you do. They're in your bag. Your shoes are at the door with a fresh pair of socks. Get out of bed right now. So then it doesn't even become an excuse anymore. Now it's just you're lazy and you have no discipline. So now there's a bigger problem. So it's like we have to learn how to hold ourselves accountable and understand what type of sacrifice has to be made, because once again, these are skills, these are skill sets. Obviously if it was meant for all of us to do this, we wouldn't be having conversations about productivity. It
Right.
is a skill you have to learn, apply. It takes 21 days, and if you can't even make it through 21 days, you're not going to be able to have a lifetime of productively producing profits of anything, because you're constantly going to be stifled by procrastination, stifled by being unclear, anxiety. A lot of the anxiety we give is ourselves because we don't have clarity on where we're going next. We just kind of vibe it out. We don't have lists. So it's just so important to just develop these healthy habits, because number one, you create these healthy habits to get on a routine. When you're on a routine, let's say, for example, I know from 10 to 12, I'm supposed to be on a call dealing with my admins, but I got to go pick up baby Trey from school because he's having a stomach bug. I know that if I get back at 11:05, I know exactly where my starting point of where I'm supposed to pick back up again. And I know that because now my habits led to routines, which led me to create an awesome schedule. So I always know at any given point in the day, what am I supposed to be doing? Did this take me like a day to do? No, this took me from 2020. We're in 2023. It took me 2 years, and I'm learning so much every day. But it just took one step. And I mean, I have a nonprofit called the Single Parent Purpose. I do cleaning industry coaching. I own a cleaning business, and I have for 6 years. I have my development agency. I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. I do all these things because I have productivity in my life. So, someone's doing something right here, okay?
Yeah, no, you are. And you dropped a major gem talking about like it doesn't even take that long to implement these strategies too, right? Like people think, oh, this is going to take years, and like even just to make the minor changes, it takes maybe what 21 days, even to make these simple steps, just a short period of
Just
time to
start
commit to.
tomorrow.
Yeah, it's commitment, right? So being able to make the changes now changes is going to change your mindset later, and then that's starting to develop the habits. And the habit comes naturally because now you're starting to implement that stuff. And then you feel better, right? You
Yeah,
feel better, you're
feels so
looking
good.
better. It's everything. Let's just say you pick up a lot of land. This has happened a couple times. Wetlands, environmental, right? Um, the person that owns it wants to sell it, but then you got to do a perk test, or you got to do a wetland test, or you got to run it by the EPA, or I had a probate one time. This was a crazy story. I had a probate one time, and it was 4 probates because it went back to like the grandfather. And it was an easy 4 probates. To you, Brent, you're like, okay, what's 4 probates? But it was like one down to the other, down to the other, and then there were like 6 kids, right? In my world, it was easy, right? So I ran the numbers. It made sense for everybody. And then they had to wait for an environmental test to come back. And then all of a sudden, they had a green light. We filed all 4 probates. The very next day, they got a letter from the EPA that said it's like a portion of it was wetlands. So like what do you do in your world when you get that kind of situation? Are you working with EPA? Are you working with the county to figure out how to maneuver around a wetland or environmental issue? Because those seem to be deal killers when it comes to land.
Yeah, I'm not maneuvering around those. If there's an environmental issue, people ask me all the time, what land do you not buy? Environmental issue land. Now, if it's got any issues whatsoever, like we back away from it. Now, wetlands, not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. Like, because you can see FEMA flood maps. You can do what's called a wetland study, an engineer study for like $2,500. I took 27 acres out in Florida and subdivided it into 3 9-acre parcels, and 12% of it was wetlands. We just weren't allowed to touch the ditches. When you have 9 acres and 12% of it, of the whole 27 acres is wetlands, not a big deal. Like, there's certain areas you just can't touch. And, then you have gopher turtles. You got to be very careful about those in Florida. You want to make sure that if you know about it, like, I would still buy and sell a piece of land with wetland and gopher turtles, but I would get a way bigger discount from the seller. Now, environmental issues, I don't care what the discount is, because that can come back to haunt you. Commercial land, you really want to run environmental studies, and sometimes it holds things up. Like, we're doing 14 acres in Tennessee, and we've got it at a smoking hot price, like 1/3 the value. But if it doesn't pass that percolation test, and for anybody that's wondering what a percolation test is, I love coffee. Like, the coffee, The water has to go through the coffee grounds and the filter. That's percolating. And if you can't percolate it, if it's like all rock, the water just doesn't percolate. It doesn't drain. So you can't have a septic system. So that land will be absolutely worthless if we can't get a septic system, except for hunting and recreation. So I say it's worthless to a builder, but it's very valuable to that person that wants hunting land on that 14 acres.
Interesting. And you talked about like the birds and the gophers, and I've heard about like the bluebirds, and like there's certain things, and like you got to be careful, right? In Lehigh Acres, I've heard things like one land may have a tortoise or a turtle that's endangered, and then the next lot of land has something else. So like you never just go into that deal without doing your due diligence to find out what's going on there, right? So those are a lot of little things that you have to pick up on, and that takes experience in getting into.
Yeah, unfortunately, I learned a lot of that due diligence the hard way. I bought land with craters in the ground, and land that was on treasurer's deed that had clouds on the title for 9 years, little things like that. Always go and look at the land. If you are not near the land, then send a land specialist realtor, one that's very familiar with that area, the one that's selling all the land in that area, and ask, what am I looking out for? We're buying 18 lots in Hawaii right now. Well, I'm like, okay, do you guys have gopher turtles? Do you have some type of special parrot or blah, blah, blah? She's like, no, it's like, she did talk about this little, this bird, but she's like, I've never seen that stop anybody from building. One thing they had was lava out there. So I'm talking to the realtor that sells most of the land on the big island of Hawaii right now, because I'm not there. So we're also getting it at 20 cents on the dollar. So that builds in a huge margin of safety. However, there's always going to be get it under contract and figure out the rest. You can always extend your contract. You can really just get the longest inspection period you can possibly get. And when people are selling land, they're usually not in a massive rush.
And so every day we have to make a conscious decision of like which voice is going to win. And that comes down to commitment. Commitment is staying true. I'm staying true to what I said I was going to do long after the emotion I set it in has left me. Period. And then I have like a commitment contract. I wrote out my goals. So my goals are like my internal GPS, like where do I want to go? I got really clear on the things that I didn't want to give me clarity on the things that I do want. How do I want to show up every day? I did out my introduction. Who am I becoming? What do I have to overcome? And who do I have to become her, to build her? And I remind myself every day of what I'm working towards. And it's like learning to play a new character until you become really good at that, and that becomes who you are. So yeah, it comes down to commitment.
Make a commitment to a new direction for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And that also, I feel like with commitment comes accountability. I always feel like I hear the same word with commitment. And I truly believe that the only person that can hold yourself accountable is yourself. And I mean, you have a support group around you. Well, I love to hear your take on this. You do have people around you that will point out things that may motivate you to hold yourself accountable, but ultimately there's nobody else that will.
I agree in the aspect where it's really relevant to learn self-accountability. I have something where I was, self-sufficiency, self-efficiency is really important, because the opposite is codependency. And I feel like how we can be time machines is establishing interdependency, where that's why I'm very, very much about coaches. I have coaches. I'm in masterminds. I'm in inner circles. And when I go to events, I figure out how we can create our own little mastermind, our own little inner circle. And so accountability is critical. The best way I can describe accountability is like, you want to enrich your ecosystem, because in moments where maybe that other voice is really taking over, and other people, like the right people that really do have your back, not those crabs in a bucket, but like the people that really have your back, they're going to remind you of what you're working towards in moments where your faith is wavering. And then also support. support and accountability. So I agree with you 100%, but I do feel that we do need interdependency. Interdependency. A lot of people don't know about that word.
And what is that? Elaborate on that.
So codependency is like, I need you as a coach or as a mentor, or as a friend. I need you. That's the only way I'm going to get it done. Interdependency is like, you have your strengths, I have my strengths, and we support each other and we move as a unit. Elena Cardone said it beautifully. She talked about the story of the Clydesdales, where Clydesdale alone could pull, I think, like 8,000 units together. People would think 16, two Clydesdales side by side, but they ended up pulling like 32 units. And then like working together interdependently, they pulled like over 100,000 units or something like that. Don't quote me on the numbers, but it was like literally like 10x. It was 10x, like 3x the amount by just side by side. But then the other one was like working together. Like, I hold my ground, you hold your ground, and like we move as a unit towards a common goal and mission.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So all these concepts play a role in yourself and I feel like it plays a role in self-awareness. And one thing that you mentioned to me, and I hope we can talk about this, there's just because there's so many different concepts that I know, which is, what is the ostrich effect thing that you're talking about? Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I thought about that on the plane back from Atlanta to Miami, and I was like, what is the ostrich thing that Tanya's talking about?
Yeah.
Because with different people and what paths they go down, I feel like, I don't know how to describe it. It's probably I'm not gonna articulate it the best, but like,
go ahead.
You see somebody that's stuck, and then you work on them with unstuck. And then you see somebody that's unstuck, and then you're like, okay, now this is your next direction, and this is where I see things. And I feel like you were talking to me about progress. Okay, fine, right.
Unstuck is progress, moving in a forward movement mindset, forward movement something. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was almost like you are just recognizing the next assignment. Like you're able to say, okay, this is next for you. Mm-hmm. Almost like a prescription. Like, this is next for you. Yeah. What in the world is the ostrich thing?
Okay, so the ostrich phase, I had to go through this myself. Sometimes you're not going to maybe have the funds to hire a coach or a mentor, and you're going to maybe you're coming from a space of partying or being in a toxic ecosystem, and you're going to have to disassociate from people, places, and things. And ostrich phase is an ostrich that digs his head inside the ground and just stays laser focused. And people aren't going to understand. And it's kind of almost like you fall off the face of the earth for a while, but you just get laser focused. And that's why I do feel like having support and coach and mentorship and joining a mastermind is so critical, because they help you focus depending on, how your level of strength. And when you're making changes, like, I'll have clients that like are doing amazing, but one of the traits of an extremist personality, which are high-end achievers, overachievers, is also yo-yoing. And they'll be on and then they'll be off, and they'll be on. And that's part of the extremist personality. And it can be processed. There's something called process addiction, where it can process with one thing and then process into the next. And that's why a lot of entrepreneurs end up becoming workaholics and burnout and all these different traits. It comes down to a personality trait. There's no coincidence why people end up being at different levels and doing different things. It comes down to a personality trait. And so the ostrich phase is sometimes when you need to get laser focused, and you need to know that you're not strong enough to be in environments, and you can't control yourself. You just have to eliminate them altogether. So you just isolate and you go focused until maybe you can end up putting yourself back in those situations again, or those places. But for example, like when I was overcoming my addictions, I stopped going to the clubs, and I love dancing. And I stopped going to the clubs because the environment, I couldn't control myself. So I just didn't go. I just had to like stop going and go into ostrich phase until I started building myself up. I built up, I did a lot of this work. I had coaches and I got super focused and got strong. And then now I can go out with friends and not even drink, and still hold my ground. And there was the best way, I think, as I heard somebody, I think I scrolled on TikTok somewhere or Instagram, and I saw this woman talking about how we can't really blossom in toxic soil. And in order for a flower to really blossom and bloom, it's nothing that the flower is doing or how you're watering it. It's about sometimes taking the flower and putting it in enriched soil. And sometimes we have to replant our flower and like have healthy soil, enrich it, and then wait for a timing of harvest. So
I know, how many investors do I know in Texas that are watching? They love the affidavit of heirship, and talk to us about that. Like, I don't know what that process is like in Texas, but isn't it like filling out like a whole questionnaire? Like, it's super detailed. You need all the heirs, or like there's so many things you need.
So what you need, you need the facts. Basically, the what do they call it? Of course, I can't remember at the moment. The affidavit of fact concerning the identity of the heirs. And what it says is whoever was in title, where were they born? Were they married? Who were they married to? Do they have any kids in or outside of the marriage? Are they married multiple times? Who are their children? And then you have to usually cite in the intestate succession chart in the probate code, the estates code, who the heirs are and why. The tricky part is if you only have daddy died and 2 kids, that's a very simple 1 to 3 page affidavit. Oh, and it needs to be signed by 2 disinterested witnesses and 1 interested witness, meaning a person that's vested and benefiting from the transaction, and 2 that are not. The reason they're doing that is they're trying to reduce the fraud risk. Because if you signed it, and here's the crazy part, you talked about law and underwriting are different. In Texas, you have to have the title company wants 2 disinterested witnesses and a vested party. And the judicial system wants,
that's crazy.
It's a disinterested witness. God dang it, I can't forget. It's 2 of the 3 now. So I always get these affidavits with 2 signatures and not the third one. And it's statutory, but it doesn't work for title. So you have to get a new one.
Yeah, because what works for one, of course, doesn't work for the other because there's just totally different requirements. You like get a whole bunch of signatures. That's really interesting. I understand the concept of the disinterested part. So there's nobody that's like trying to like say that they're doing something here. But to have an interested party also be a part of it. It's like in Miami with probate, they want a homestead affidavit, a supporting homestead affidavit of a friend or a neighbor or somebody that's not connected, has no interest in that estate. So it's
just
funny.
Say that person lived there, and I promise they lived there too. So it's a corroborate. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But let me tell you where this gets interesting. So when you've got 2 children and daddy, not big of a deal, just a couple people. But when I gave the example of the vesting deed from 1908, and now you have a whole bunch of kids and there are several unresolved estates. The worst I've done so far had 65 heirs, and there were 3 generations of decedents with unresolved estates. So this affidavit of heirship, dude, we spent so much time interviewing the family, writing information, corroborating it, going back and forth and helping them with supporting documents. And we can't do the affidavit. We're not lawyers. And we can't even hire a lawyer for them because that can be kind of seen as barristering too. So we have to say, this would be a good lawyer, go to them. We might advance them some money on the transaction to pay for the lawyer because there has to be a clear separation with the fiduciary duties and who's a lawyer and who's not. But we have spent tens of thousands of dollars corroborating heirship information and finding people across the world so that they can make this affidavit of heirship that literally writes like a small book. I'm talking a normal affidavit of heirship should have 1 to 2 pages, maybe 3. Some of these have been 50 to 60 pages with 65 living heirs, but combined, there's about 40 people in the affidavit of heirship, alive and deceased.
Wow.
So that one particular property had been that family tried to sell it half a dozen times. There are 4 or 5 memos in the land records. They brought it to us. And the moment we realized what was going on, the property had about 50 grand in taxes. So we knew that was coming. We withdrew $100,000 in cash out of the bank at separate times because they won't give you that much at once. And the following week, we fleshed out a family tree as best we could with the family. And then we had 3 guys literally driving to meet these folks. We picked up 5 or 6 different attorney offices around the city. And we were basically having people go to the different offices, pay cash, and sign a deed with $100,000 split up in the glove boxes of the cars, going around and closing all these transactions. How much do you want? 1,000. Here you go. How much do you want? Oh, you want it for free? We'll take it. So they'd sign a contract and a deed, and we would video them saying some things on an affidavit. I know that I'm the owner of the property. I no longer own it. I'm selling it for a fair amount because it's got all the problems. We collected 65 deeds in about 2 weeks. We spent $200,000 in cash. We paid $50,000 of the taxes, so we were all in it for $250,000. We ran it back through title. We found a couple of judgment liens we had to deal with. After that, we sold it for $1,250,000.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's insane.
But the problem is, even a family that loves each other, how are they going to get 65 people together on the same page? Somebody's got to pay for it. They all have to get their closing together. That was us over a 2-week period. So that's why we got paid, because not many people can do this. It was in downtown of a very hot MSA in Texas, and no one has still figured it out. Everything had been developed around it. It was the last half-acre lot in the middle of like full development.
Yeah, and I could totally relate to. I mean, that 65's a lot. I mean, I've never seen that before. I think Ryan.
I don't want to see it again.
Yeah, I think Ryan was talking about 24 or 25. I mean, like, I haven't heard about the 65 yet. But it's crazy, and I can relate to the fact that it's such a complicated subject. It's a complicated situation that multiple people have tried to solve, can't solve, because I've talked about it on Reels with this commercial land that it's in a hot area that 4 other lawyers couldn't solve. And here comes my firm. We look at it and there's 6 probates. I mean, it was insane, but it's being able to think outside the box. And
most lawyers are trained like you are, and they go straight to the property code for their state, or they go to the estates code.
Yeah.
They go right to those things, or the probate code, and they go right to that. And I always stop them and say, whoa. Let's find out what's really going to make this work. You're going to need some stuff in that. But if you don't use your businessman brain, you just use your formerly trained lawyer brain, this deal is freaking dead.
What are some of those foundational things that you're doing to do the scaling part?
So this is where I'm going to be nerding out here. This is my favorite thing to talk about.
Nerd out
in any business, there's 3 things that you need to focus on. There's 3 main systems. Call these our macro systems, our big ones. You're going to have marketing, you're going to have sales, and you're going to have fulfillment. Those are the 3 things. Now, in real estate, the fulfillment is a little bit different. I would exchange fulfillment for exit. And this is for any real estate business. So if you're wholesaling, you're going to have your marketing, you're going to have your sales, and your exit is going to be the assignment of the contract. If it's an ovation, you're going to be getting it on the MLS. If it's a listing, you're going to be getting it on the MLS. So then it's the exact same. There's going to be marketing, sales, and exit. So those are your macro processes. And you have to create just a big ideological thought, like, what am I doing to run this process? What am I doing to run this one and this one? And then once you have those, this is where you can start to build your foundation. So when we're talking about building your business, you have to start at the start. You can't start at the finish line. And this is where actually a lot of people go wrong. What they do is they're going to start by learning a bunch of different exit strategies. They're going to learn how to do a wholesale. They're going to learn how to do a sub 2. They're going to learn some novation, some other creative tools. They're going to get a big referral network, all this stuff, thinking, hey, this is going to help me get more deals. Unfortunately, it's not the case. If your pipeline is dry, it's going to stay dry. All of a sudden, having these exit strategies isn't going to, open everything up. You got to start at the beginning. You have to start in marketing. So when we're looking at marketing, the macro process, this is going to be what the strategy we're doing to get leads are. So there's 2 main types of marketing in the real estate space. There's going to be your outbound marketing, and there's going to be your inbound marketing. So outbound is where you're reaching out to people and seeing if they want to sell their house. Inbound marketing is where you're going to have these different hooks in the water where people can come to you and see if they want to, and ask if you can buy their house. So in any instance, inbound leads are always going to be significantly higher quality because they have intent baked in. You're not trying to pull it out of them. You're not trying to fish it out of them. They've come with that baked in. However, inbound leads, they have a higher cost restriction to getting started in them, because you have to be paying to either get your ads out in the space or to get your site optimized or to get your mailers out there, whatever your inbound method is. There's extra costs associated with it, where if you're doing outbound marketing, and that now you're leveraged not by capital, but by the amount of time you can put into it. Because you can put your time into making more dials, sending more texts, knocking on more doors. So you have to understand at which point are you in your business? What are you more hard out for? Is your time more valuable to you, or is your money more valuable to you? And once you make that decision, that will help you determine which of the methods is going to be the best way for you to go to begin scaling. A lot of people, if you guys are brand new to the space, maybe you don't have a full-time job, or maybe you do, but you don't have a whole bunch of expendable cash, you don't have a whole bunch of money on the side, for you, you've got to start in outbound marketing. You have to get one of these processes in place. You have to choose what you want to do. And for me, I'm biased towards cold calling. I like it a lot better than any of the other methods. Mass SMS is getting tougher and tougher with regulations, and it's kind of a cop-out. You're not really building a skill set, and most people are doing it out of fear of talking on the phones. Cold calling, its delivery rates are still high, conversion rates are still high, and you're building a true skill set and being able to talk to people. So I'm biased towards cold calling. So beginners, I'd recommend diving into cold calling. From there, what you do is you just put together a really simple process. Start at your end goal, finding a lead, and then you just got to work backwards to the front. And you just draw it out, create a repeatable process, and it could be the simplest thing ever. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you do it. You run that process through. And then you go back to the beginning and you run the process again and again. And then you're going to have a new idea. You're going to add it to the process. And you're going to figure out something that doesn't work in it. Maybe you thought it was going to work. It doesn't. You're going to cut that out. And you constantly iterate on it. And then all of a sudden you find that, hey, I've got this really well-refined process that I, put in 6, 7, 8 months into, and now this thing's performing like crazy.
So let's start there. Inbound, outbound, right?
Yeah.
And I know you like the outbound for new ones because, less money, but more time. And the inbound, I could see that being more like the PPC. You're putting more money into it, but less time. So what's that? How do you find that balance really between the two, where you're not overspending, but you're also not spending time doing the kind of stuff like you're being on the phone all the time? I mean, at a certain point, you can't be on the phone all the time.
Mm-hmm. So this is when we're talking about scaling, right? If we are going to figure out how we're going to be getting consistency in the business, again, it starts in the marketing. You need consistent lead flow through and through. So eventually it gets to a point where you're doing as many dials as you possibly can. You can't do more dials. So now you need to do one of two things. You can either hire people to do calling for you, and so that's where you're leveraging capital to leverage other people's time, or this is where you start to make the change into doing inbound. Now you're going to be spending money to get leads directly into your business. And I recommend doing that rather than scaling via outbound, because when you're looking at the amount of processes you need to build out to really scale an outbound operation, there's a lot more there, because you have to manage people. And with people, there's always going to be more problems. But versus if you're just going to start doing inbound methods, like running an ad set, all you've got to do is pay to get that ad set set up once, and pay a team to run the ads for you. Or you can do it yourself. I wouldn't recommend it, just because now you're learning an entirely new skill set, which the best business owners aren't experts in everything. They're really good at connecting the dots between experts who are good at what they do. They keep people who are smarter around them. And so then scaling wise, that's where you make that decision, where you're putting as much effort into your outbound as possible. You're getting a consistent degree of income coming in from that. And now you want to start freeing up your time. You don't want to be spending as much time on the phones. You want to get better leads coming in. And you really want to start being able to, put like the nitrous into your engine, get that big boost. And then that way you can really take off.
Let's go one step up on the inbound marketing. How to fine tune the inbound marketing. So not on a basic level, but more on an intermediate advanced level of really ramping up the inbound so that you're getting more of the leads that are like, oh, we do want to sell. You don't have to reach out to us. What is it, using better terms or keywords, or of course it's getting with a company that understands how to use that kind of stuff, right? You don't want to learn that on your own unless you really want to put the time into it. But what seems to be really sticking? Because if you put wholesaling or real estate or buy, sell in a Google PPC, that's a wide range of stuff. It seems like it's like really narrowing the focus down to certain words and terms. What would that look like?
So that's a broad question there. And the way that I kind of tackle something like that is there's a lot. So in the realm of inbound, right? There's a lot of different ways that we're displaying our messaging to people. So for Google PPC specifically, there's going to be two main ad types that we're looking at. There's going to be discovery, and then there's going to be search. Discovery, that's where if you're watching a YouTube video and like one of the little boxes pops up below, like, hey, check this out. Discovery. So there's all these different spots where people can discover, and then those are going to be either text-based or image-based and getting people to click on those. For the actual search, what you want to be doing is I would get less clicks that are higher intent rather than trying to get a whole bunch of clicks that are low intent. So I for all of our campaigns, we're going to be bidding on much more competitive things that like we're not going to be bidding on people searching for Zillow, or we're not going to be bidding on people searching for Open Door. We're not going to be bidding on that. We're going to be bidding on things that are like sell my house fast, sell my house for cash offer investors in the area, home buyers in this area, because that way there's usually going to be a higher intent behind those. So that's what I would look like, is definitely pinpointing it down to what you want your target avatar to look like. But realistically, in any business, no matter how good your ad set is, there's going to be fluff coming in. There's going to be people already listed in the MLS. There's going to be fake clicks coming through. There's going to be people just filling it out to fill it out. There's going to be tire kickers. Those people, unfortunately, you just cannot fully filter out. This is where your sales process comes in. So in your outbound, you're not like, let's say you go to batch and you pull this big list. You don't have a list of leads. This is a huge misconception in the industry that it upsets me. You don't have a list of leads. You have a list of prospects. Huge difference. A prospect is somebody you think wants to sell. A lead is somebody that has told you they want to sell. So once you find that there's this lead, that's when it comes to your sales process. You've never heard that before?
No, I haven't actually heard that one before. Yeah, we're just writing that down for micro. What is the difference between a prospect and a lead?
Prospect is somebody you think wants to sell, and a lead is somebody who's told you they want to sell. Because the entire goal for outbound, when you're doing your cold calling, is, hey, are you the owner of the home, right? Am I talking to so-and-so? Am I talking to Al? And then if Al says, yeah, this is him, and my data says that Al's the owner, now I'm going to say, hey, Al, you interested in selling your home? No? Okay, cool, next, right? I'm not going to waste my time on you at this point. But if you say, yeah, I'm interested in selling, cool, we're moving into the sales process, I'm going to translate to a sales conversation. Cold calling, in a sense, is marketing. Mass SMS, that's marketing. That's not sales. With inbound, people are coming in. Once they're in, because they filled out your site, they're pretty much already, 95% of them are already leads. They want to sell their house. Now it's your sales process's job to weed out the people that are shit and continually follow up with the people that you want to be working with.
Yeah.
And that's how you're going to be achieving your ROI. And if you have a really solid sales process that you've documented, now the idea is that you really don't need a budget per se. What you need a consistent ROI, and you can only have an ROI if you're actually tracking your numbers. You're tracking your attempts, you're tracking your contacts, you're tracking your average cost per lead, your cost per contract, your cost per contract closed. Then you can figure out, okay, I'm spending this much, I'm making this much, and if that ROI is positive, dump as much as you can into your marketing.
I wanted to talk about this because it's come up in my world. You mentioned it when we were on the phone. The hot recent trend. Maybe this is going to be a segment on the show. Hot recent trend on imposter fraud on transactions. What is going on that you've seen recently with imposter fraud?
Man, I got another deal just 2 days ago that I was like, man, this is feeling a little weird. There's people, we're all skip tracing from pretty similar resources. And some of these people that are the wrong numbers are getting wise to it. And for example, somebody last week, and they got me. I paid them $100 of gas money to be able to come and show me the property. And they were not real people. Oh, they were, but they weren't the owners, right? These people are getting really good. And I've had 3 in the last month, and I don't think I had 3 all of last year, where people are getting these calls continuously, where they're just now trying to see, well, how much can I get out of this person? I've had 2 properties. One I just mentioned, another one where the guy is like, there's now tall tale signs. It's people that are really trying to push for a very quick close. Like, If you don't think that the property is under a foreclosure and they're like, I need this closed in like 2 weeks, like something's a little fishy nowadays for that. I started realizing if they want to, of course, want you to pay them outside of a title closing. That's obviously very big. This guy was good though. I will walk you through this one because I was impressed. I was of course a little mad, but I mean, it was $100. I mean, I was just more like, damn, this guy was good. You know, I was impressed. I was very impressed with it because the guy he seemed a little bit older, and he was just like, this property has just become a burden. It was a family property, which was this guy. The guy knew the story very well, and he was like, but unfortunately, I'm on Social Security, and I just don't have the money to be able to make it down to Orlando. And I was like, okay. And this is not just one call, by the way. This is like over a span of 2 or 3 weeks. If the guy stuck to the story well, man. And the thing is that he was like, I just need some gas money to be able to get there. And I tried doing other options, but I was like, he's a little bit elderly. Sometimes, they just want to do stuff face to face as opposed to a mobile notary or DocuSign or faxing or whatever it is, right? So I was like, you know what? Fine. It's $100. Like, here you go. Like, he's like, all right, thanks for being able to do that. We're going to go on the road tomorrow. I was like, okay, perfect. So he tells me he's going on the road, and this is insane. He tells me he's coming from Pensacola, which is roughly about 4 or 5 hours away from Orlando, and he should be here by about 4 o'clock. And I was like, okay, just let me know. Because it was right near where my office is. Like, I could walk to this property. And I was so excited. I was like, man, I'm going to get another property right near here. Awesome. I'm so excited, right? Oh, hey, David, I got a call from him. Hey, David, I'm sorry, man. It looks like I'm not going to be able to get in until about like 9 or 10. I was like, I mean, you told me 4 o'clock. How the heck did it happen like 5 hours later? And he's like, hey, I know we didn't talk about this, but it would really mean a lot. I feel like you could help me out with paying for like part of the room for tonight. And I'll meet you at the property like first thing in the morning. I was like, no, I'll meet. And I go, well, tell you what, I'll meet with you. I'll talk to the front desk receptionist and I'll meet you at the property. And we can go from there. Or I'll meet you at the hotel, whatever you want prior. And that's fine with me. And then he did like a great gaslight for people who didn't understand what gaslighting was. Like, I guess me for the last couple of like weeks, gaslighting is when you just completely flip the script on somebody and make it seem like now it's their fault as opposed to your fault. Right. So he just flips it on me. You know what? This is what I hate about dealing with you real estate investors. You want to take the properties from me. I'm trying to pay it. Like, he's like, and he just goes off. And I was like, oh man, like this guy's like, he's really hurt. I felt bad. And then I was like, listen, I just want to meet with you face to face. I will pay for it with my card to the front desk person. He's like, no, you know what? This is just sheer disrespectful. I've been driving all day. I'm tired. I need to just get some sleep, and then I'll meet you there in the morning. I was like, no. Like, I'm either bringing my contract to the front desk with you, and I'll meet you, or like you can pay for it, and I'll reimburse you. And just went on and on. He got gaslighted. He's like, I'm going to tell the neighbors you are a fraud. And once again, so this just deteriorates. I just go to knock on the door. Like I said, right near my office. I was like, I got to just find this out. The guy was a retired cop, and he's like, you're the 4th person that has knocked on my door. He got somebody for over $1,000.
Wow. He keeps doing it to more people. It's crazy.
Because everybody's skip tracing, and everybody's calling.
That's crazy. How these people are doing it. They're getting really good at it.
Really good.
Yeah, and David, I've seen some crazy stuff lately, like with land, vacant land. It seems to be a real issue where there's foreign, the people that own the land are foreign international owners. And some people are finding out, they're like either going through the records and saying, well, wait a second, this person's in Asia, this person's in Europe, this person's somewhere else. And they're getting creative about the way that the deeds are done and being notarized. And pretending that they're somebody else, or they're a part of the family, or they're an heir of somebody. It's crazy. More on land, because nobody's there. They're not paying attention.
Right.
I saw one. I did a probate, and I was crazy. And you better believe they're like, oh, they signed away a quit claim to get rid of it. But yeah, these are happening more often than people think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I told you, man, the guy was good. He knew his script.
Crazy.
He was good, man. Yeah. I mean, hey guys, what's the Latin phrase? Caveat emptor? Was that buyer beware, right?
Buyer beware.
You just got to watch out, man. And nowadays I'll just be a little bit more due diligent. I'll be like, hey, not a problem. If you're good with it, like if you guys could just provide a driver's license to the title company upon contract, then I'd be completely fine. You just never know, man. People are sneaky. You just got to be able to have good teammates, B, just be able to come across and just be like, you have to develop that experience, right? That's where wisdom comes in, right? And just now, that new one, I will be on the lookout for that. So the guy was good. So just watch out, guys. It's a real thing, and it's impacting a lot of people. And I'm sure it comes across your desk, as you mentioned, a lot, Al. I mean, you're a probate attorney in Florida, man. You're dealing with a lot of people, unfortunately, that, maybe these properties haven't been touched for a very long time. So that's a dang good point.
Yeah, it's crazy. We just saw it with the land. The land's the wild one with the international sellers, the international owners. For some reason, that seems to be a pretty big target. I think even some title underwriters keep putting out alerts that this keeps happening with fraud and all that stuff. I think Chad was on the show. Chad was saying that like this keeps happening more often. So Teresa said the seller fraud is even happening when you close with a title company and notary does ID verification. Wow. Still happening that way.
That's elite. That's elite, man. That is some crazy fraud. Wow.
Yeah. She says,
yeah. I mean, listen, it's part of the world. It's part of the world, but man, that's good, man. That's a scheme. That's continuously happening. That is crazy because you just don't stumble upon that, right? You had to really take some time to articulate that.
Sophisticated fraud.
Damn.
Yeah, they're getting good.
Yeah, man. That's
crazy. David, it was a fire episode, man. I thank you for being on. Thank you for coming on. Happy that the internet was solid ever since, and we got through. We got through everything. The power was on.
That was so good.
Hey, you know what? It worked out, right? We've been through worse. We've had worse situations. So, as I do with
it was crazy. It was so crazy because the second that you did it, everything turned off. I was like, "What just happened?" I was like, "This guy brought he just brought an electromagnetic pulse through freaking all of Florida, and it just hit my house over here in Orlando, man." You bring the energy, brother. That was crazy. I've never experienced that. That was awesome.
Perfect. That's a first for you. Perfect. I love it. I would have loved to have seen what that was like on that end. That had to be really cool. But yeah, man, look, hey, as I do with all my guests on the Al Nicoletti show, when we wrap this up, I do my segment, final words, final thoughts. It could be anything on what we covered, anything on your experiences, getting into the journey, exit strategies, things you're working on now, maybe things that you're looking at later. But I do final words, final thoughts. David Pupo.
Thanks. Yeah. Right now, guys, is a very critical time to be able to understand different strategies. I was just reading that on the current market, outstanding mortgages, 99% of them are lower than today's interest rates. What I've also seen is that our unemployment rate by the end of this year is going to go up at least a full percent. There's going to be layoffs. There's an estimated 2 million people that are going to be laid off in 2023. Those are going to be some of the final dominoes that are going to get knocked over, and then this will be a true. Like we've been in it for a little bit, but we're kind of putting our head in the sand. This is happening. You got to understand that the market is just, it was swung one way so hard that it's coming back the other. Interest rates are high. Freaking chicken eggs are crazy high. Gas is still crazy high. Interest rates are high. I mean, everything is making the normal everyday consumer's life unaffordable. I also was seeing that credit card debt is at all-time highs since about 2007. These are not crazy indicators. These are all correlated. People cannot simply afford what's going on. There has to be something that just comes down. And when it comes down, you got to make sure you are working with the right teammates. You are working with the right strategies on an entrance and the right exit strategies too. It's going to be critical. And the people that have been preparing for it are going to be the ones that capitalize on it. And the people who aren't are going to be the ones that are being capitalized on.